All right, everyone, student leaders, interested parties, I appreciate every single one of you for taking the time out of your day to be a part of this great discussion. I'm looking forward to where this conversation is going to take us. As most of you know, we had our town hall just, was it 2 weeks ago? And it was great turnout, great student leaders on there, and students throughout our system, and even faculty and staff participated. We got some great discussion, 2 hours worth of discussion, and we still were going after those 2 hours, even though we had to end that town hall. But got some great feedback from everybody. Looking forward to presenting you our take on that feedback and what our action plan is going to look like. So this is a forum today for you as students just to provide feedback on our action plan that we have drafted. And it was based and developed on the stories that were shared by our students at the last town hall on August 4th. This is not an opportunity, again, to blame individuals or groups. You know, we're not directing, hey, this is how I feel, or these people are doing this to me on my campus. That's not what we're here for. We're more to make progress to create an environment where students, especially those of color, feel welcome and able to succeed. We want to use I feel statements while we're here. This platform is to provide space for healthy discussion that results in an SSCCC plan of action, which is what we have for you today, to inform policy decisions on behalf of students. So we're going to take this action plan and push it out to our system partners and to our board of directors or board of trustees throughout the state, and get the ball moving on progress towards racial equity. Next slide. And I'm not sure if Duran is on the call. Duran, if you're on the call, raise your hand, bud. If not, I'm gonna pass it off. I think my colleague Joseph Merchain from A2 Mend organization is gonna go over some housekeeping tips for you.
Hello, good afternoon to you all. Thank you guys for making it. So I'm gonna go over the housekeeping rules for you all today. So this town hall is recorded and will be archived on the Student Senate YouTube channel. All audience members are on mute. To be recognized, please type your name or identifier in the chat. A monitor will call your name and you will be recognized to speak. Please do not speak until you're recognized. Excuse me. We ask those who are not students respectfully to allow only students to speak. If you have a question, you are free to type it in the chat and it will be asked at an appropriate time.
Yeah, thank you for those housekeeping tips, Joseph. Yeah, if you have a question or you would like to talk, just use the raise hand feature by going into participants, raise your hand, or type something in the chat and we'll address it through our task force members. At this time, I'm going to ask the Legislative Affairs Director for Region 2 to go over our community agreements. So Jasmine Prasad, please direct everyone through the community agreements.
Good evening, everyone. The community agreements are suspend judgment and keep an open mind, maintain the essence, dignity, and respect of what is shared, respect and understand different perspectives, speak truth and be kind, speak from I saw, I felt, listen for understanding, respect strengths and weaknesses of all, and balance listening with speaking out, be mindful of time and sharing with others.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Our discussion today will just go so much better if we just keep in mind these community agreements. You know, speaking from I saw, I felt this, and you know, balancing out our speaking, respecting the strengths and weaknesses, and just listening for some understanding. So these are great community agreements. We're going to move on, and I'm going to introduce you to our task force members. Not all of them are on the call today. As you know, some classes are actually starting again. Some students have school. As you can tell, I'm back at work. This is my classroom. I'm actually a physical education teacher for a local school district, so I'm back at work. But yes, there's other obligations that our students have. So the task force members that we had that helped develop this action plan, we had Gerardo Chavez from Riverside City College. Tyra Cobbs from Los Medinos College, Donna Delgadillo, American River College, Marlene Hurd, Merritt College, Joseph Merchain, Pasadena City College, Mohammed Mortada, Mount San Antonio College, Jasmine Prasad, Folsom Lake College, Desiree Rodriguez, American River College, and Deron Walker from Fresno City College. So those are the task force members. They all were instrumental in helping provide this action plan and providing listening ears at our last town hall. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition into our discussion about the action plan. We're going to present to you the action plan that stemmed from our last town hall. We met a few times as a task force to just go over all of the conversations that we had and that was had there. And we developed an action plan that's pretty straightforward. It's going to go through about 5 or 6 pillars that are the backbone of the action plan, and then gives you what type of action we expect to see out of those pillars. And the purpose is to end the systemic racism, right? We're ending systemic racism within our California community college system, and that's what we want to see. And this is directly from the voice of students. So Dr. Adams, if you don't mind rolling through, this is our full action plan. It comes complete with our introduction, but these are our pillars. So our first pillar that we want to go through is cultural awareness and respect. We want to create a climate of cultural awareness and respect to allow students of color to feel welcome, free to express their opinions, and safe in every collegiate environment. And what does that look like? Well, we want to confront and address racial profiling and microaggression. We want to appreciate the contributions of Black Americans and other people of color to society. We want to establish the appropriate etiquette sensitive to cultural backgrounds and create an environment where students can thrive while being their own authentic selves. So this was our first action plan, our first action pillar. Dr. Adams, could you actually scroll up a little bit, please? Up. So we can see, no, the other way. The other way, so we could see the whole thing instead of the picture. There we go. So the pillar is the cultural awareness and respect. The intro states, we want to have that climate of cultural awareness and respect that allows for students of color to feel welcome, free to express their opinion, and safe in every collegiate environment. Everywhere, that means the classroom, on campus, wherever they go throughout the California community college system, we want them to feel safe, free to express their opinion. I don't know if you remember, there was a student that spoke last time at the town hall that said, they wanted to bring up a contribution that a Black American had on early Black history, and the professor laughed at them after they were done, speaking their thoughts. And that's what we don't want here within our system, right? We want to have an overall acceptance, a cultural awareness and respect. So this was our first pillar, along with the action that we have. If anyone else has any comments to go off of this, we can take them at this time, or you can wait until the very end, and we'll go over the whole document as itself, or as a whole, and we can talk about the whole thing.
President Cordero, you have a hand up, I believe.
Awesome. Benson Atkins?
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. On that pillar is talking about, Mr. President, I totally agree with everything you're saying here, because I feel that me as a student and the new student trustee at Compton College, I feel everybody should be equal, should be treated the same. Like the old saying, if you want to be treated different, you could be treated different. If you want to be treated the same, you would be treated the same. But my point is that everybody should be treated as the same. So I totally agree with the cultural awareness, respect, and I believe that all colleges, including staff at different colleges, should respect that, and they should see this as we continue on as students, leaders, and student centers. So at this time, I turn the floor back over to you, Mr. President. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Atkins. Thank you for those comments. Anyone else want to express any comments or any questions that you have with this pillar of our action plan? I guess I can pull up the participants just to make sure I don't see any hand raised. All right, I'm not seeing any. If you have any other questions, like I said, this is kind of the overall first pillar. As you'll see, as we get into the next pillars of our action plan, that some of them are going to be more intentional. So the next one, Dr. Adams, if you can scroll down, sorry. I'm going to let Joseph take this one. This one's dealing with equity training on our campuses.
Equity training. Provide adequate training for all employees and students to understand cultural diversity and address issues of racism, unconscious bias, and microaggressions in order to pursue racial equity that is conducive. How do you pronounce that word? I don't know.
That was conducive.
Conducive for student success. You want me to continue reading the bullet points?
Yeah, if you can. What does equity training look like on each of the campuses? So let's go through the bullet points.
Yes, sir. Require onboarding and annual faculty training on cultural competency, conflict resolutions, unconscious bias, microaggressions, workplace diversity, and other racial barriers. Provide opportunities for students to be involved in equity training development. Create a toolkit and other resources, resource materials to accompany equity training. May you please scroll down a little bit, Dr. Adams? Thank you. Require student orientation to include anti-racism and microaggression training. Student rights in the grievance process and where to go to report instances of racism and microaggressions.
Perfect. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
So this one's dealing with equity training, not just for students, but for faculty, for staff. We want to have onboarding is when staff first come onto the campus and they're onboarded, they're trained for their position. We want them to have training on cultural competency. You know, how do they comprehend culture on their campus? How do they resolve conflict? What does an unconscious bias look like? What is a microaggression in the classroom and how do we deal with it? And just diversity and equity within the workplace. Some of the other things we wanted to see is students being able to be a part of the equity training and development. So what that means is, I don't know if you remember, there were a couple scenarios from the students where students were in a situation where they experienced, racial inequity. So we had that student who came in late to class, and one of the other students turned around and said, "Is that how you do it in your country?" And the professor didn't do anything, right? And we want students in the room to say, "Hey, that student that said that to me, this is how I would want my professor to respond in that instance," right? We want students to be able to give feedback and say, "Hey, when I feel, racially segregated, or when I feel like, racially inferior, this is how I want my professors and faculty to respond in those instances when I'm getting oppressed like that." So those are opportunities for students to be involved in that. We want to create a toolkit and other resource materials on campus. You know, if you do a training, allow those resources to be looked back on throughout the year. So faculty, staff, and students can go back and still receive that training throughout the year. And we want to require student orientations. Each year, new students that come into the college, they have a new student orientation. My college does it almost, I want to say every college does it. This year it was all digital, but there is some sort of orientation that's offered to them. And why can't that include anti-racism and microaggression training for students, right? And what are the students' rights in the grievance process? You know, as a student, if you feel like you have a grievance, where do you go? A lot of students don't know that, maybe they need to go talk to their dean, or they need to confront the professor and talk it out. Or if there's a grievance process already established, maybe online through the college website, through those college channels, if there's a grievance process, the students need to know what their right is in that grievance process, and what they can do to report instances of racism and microaggression. So Any questions or comments on this pillar, equity training? Take a look. How many hands raised? I see Ashley Brandt, Miracosta.
Yes, hi. So for something that we're doing at our school for equity training, like specifically for the STEM and MLC centers, is they have a safe college course that has to do with microaggressions that they're requiring staff members to do. It's different from the training that they've been doing in the past, so that's a bit of a change. And also, as ASG ourselves, we're trying to represent diversity in our own group and hoping that other groups on the campus will represent that model as well.
Awesome. And you said that's a whole course?
Yeah, it's I want to say it's like about 20 minutes long, but it goes along with like sexual harassment training and lifting training and all that stuff. But it's a specific course for microaggression, and there's a different course for like diversity training. So
is it kind of like a Canvas shell that you can get into?
It's called Safe Colleges. It's like its own organization kind of thing. It's like a website, and it has like a whole bunch of different courses, and microaggressions is like one of the courses they train in.
Nice. All right. Thank you. Any other comments, suggestions? And I know our grammar, we need to change that that S, other resource material, and we'll definitely get rid of that. We've highlighted it to take it out later. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we will move on. Jasmine, would you like to take curriculum changes?
Yeah. So for curriculum changes, we want to ensure that the community college curriculum is responsive to all cultures in an effort to foster cultural appreciation, awarenesses, acceptance, and value. And so what we mean by that is to advocate that four-year universities accept Black, African American, Chicano, and Native American history and history courses from other cultures, along with U.S. and European history, to fulfill history requirements. Integrate Black history contributions and culture into all curriculum, add a cultural studies department or center on each campus, and design a course or certificate program focused on social justice.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jasmine. So a couple of the comments that we received in the last town hall was about curriculum changes. I know the thought was brought up, you know, when we talk about Black history, why does it start with slavery? And some of those other issues, we talked about how U.S. history is the only history that's allowed as your history requirement and your A to G requirements to transfer and to go on. So maybe trying to alleviate that, or to expand on that requirement to allow for some other courses to fill that void. So we want to integrate Black history and contributions and culture into all curriculum, and add cultural studies departments on each center and campus. Some colleges are already doing that. We'd like to step up the game and add that to other colleges. And even I just actually found out from my college, we're going to be exploring a social justice program over the next year and what that might look like. So if we can put this in our action plan and get this out to some of the other colleges, maybe they can expand on that also. So any thoughts, comments, questions on this issue, on this pillar? On curriculum changes? I see Jose and Trekin.
Antrikin, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no
I actually am from the Maricosta College, and I wanted to ask if these is this going to be part of like a like, are we proposing this to the state senate, or how are we going to like implement the advocacy of this? And have we considered that cultural competency training we might want it to extend to our campus police, and to look at how and whether our campus police is being trained in diversity training.
Awesome. So I think you had two questions there. I'm going to take the cultural competency one first. So the cultural competency training that we're trying to give is for faculty, staff, and students. For campus police, they're going to be considered in the staff area, so they would receive that training also. And I think that we can, we'll make a note of when we do lobby this going forward to maybe even have cultural competency specific to that area of study or to that area of staff members. I think that's a great idea. The second one is advocating for this further. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this action plan, we're going to move it forward to our system partners, which includes Chancellor's Office, Academic Senate, Faculty Association, and a lot of the other different system partners that we work with. See how we can affect change within those organizations. You know, Academic Senate deals a lot with curriculum. So maybe we can deal with something there. Push this forward. We will lobby it with legislators if it needs to have some sort of Title V change or education code change. If that answers all your questions. Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Benson Atkins?
Yes, on the curriculum change. Also, I sit on that class and curriculum council board committee, and we are doing some wonderful changes, like adding more classes regarding of, for example, African American, Black history, different cultures that does come on our campus. So that's what we're doing. And this past recently, last semester, I brought up a question to my curriculum committee asking why you cutting these classes from our curriculum, and you know for a fact some of the students need these classes to go to a 4-year college. And so they had look at it, then we had decided, the whole committee, including myself, had decided to put those back in and offer those classes back. But this changes we're doing is an excellent job. Changes we're doing. I really encourage all members of the college, staff, students, president, CEOs, and other officials on campus should go on and adopt this this matter, because it will be good for our students. And I really back up. I really give my 120% support on this change, and also give my support wherever change you guys decided in the legislators do. So I turn the floor back over to you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, those are some great comments. I know, you know, there's been some changes with the CSU program. As you've seen, they're now requiring ethnic studies as part of the major requirements. So that, I think that needs to play a role in this also. I know I was just made aware of a situation at CSF where they're actually cutting some classes that are related to ethnic studies, and I think that's something that we would need to deal with as a student senate moving forward, saying, hey, these classes are vital to our students, and we need to keep them around. So any other comments, suggestions? I don't know if we had any CCSF students on here that wanted to speak to that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You're recognized. Go for it. Is that Trilia?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was typing this in the chat, but I didn't want to move on. How will you balance, you know, make sure that this doesn't add to an overall class requirement? Because Black and Brown students, they they are disproportionately kept in school longer, and that's sometimes because they're required to take remedial classes, which we're trying not to do because, you know, when you're in class longer, when you're in school longer, there's usually more chances you're not going to succeed because a lot of resources are put into that. So while I do absolutely agree that all of these classes need to be implemented, all of these courses need to be implemented, would there be a chance to kind of make it into a more consolidated thing? So then we're not keeping Black and Brown students in particular in school longer, and therefore making their chances of graduating at a good pace or transferring at a good pace.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that,
Thank you.
okay, I'll address that real quick. And if you have anything else, you can add it afterwards. So those are some great questions. And what we're dealing with specifically here, we're not adding any classes to the transfer requirement. We just received, as a student senate, we had a presentation the other day from the RP group. And what the RP group does is they collect data on transfer or transfer percentages. And what they told us is that actually Black students have the lowest transfer rate right now, or the lowest percentage to get to the transfer completion status, like to get all of their requirements to get to transfer. But once they get to that transfer, they have the highest rate of transfer. So once they get all of their requirements done, they are the highest student population to actually transfer. And then for Latino students, they have the highest percentage to get to the transfer, but they're not the low, or they're one of the lower student populations to actually transfer. So they get all their requirements done, but then don't transfer. And it's the opposite for our Black students. And we you know, we have to look into what is that? Is it because of the resources? Is it because of the transfer requirements? What is that? So what we're doing here in our curriculum changes is we're saying right now US history is a transfer requirement, right? You have to do US history. But why can't we expand on that and say, instead of just allowing for US history, why can't we have Black history to take that place instead? Maybe a student will be able to take Black history and pass that a little bit better than taking US history, which is, you know, confounded with so many different white leaders that you hear in your traditional US history class, right? And being able to substitute that course for a different course that will fulfill the same requirements. That's what we want to do here. And then implement within the curriculums, you know, philosophy, having more Black philosophers and Latino philosophers in that curriculum would be, you know, exponentially beneficial for our students to help them in their transfer process. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you so much.
That's what we definitely want to do, because we do not want to hold back our students at all and cause any extra barriers. I think the CSU adding the ethnic requirement, the ethnic studies requirement, that might even add an extra barrier, because that's an extra class that students have to take in order to graduate. But it is an extra class that it may be beneficial, you know, for a lot of our student population. But we want to be a little bit more intentional.
I would like to say something. I'm a student at CCSF as well. I'm actually on somebody else's name platform. So my name is Remy, and I wanted to say a couple of things I wanted to bring forward. Is one, the introduction to behavioral statistics does bring in issues of Black and Latino cultures, and that's a class that I'm hearing is going to be cut. So I would like that to be looked into, and because it's a class that's already there and is supporting us transferring to the university level. So that's one thing. I'd like that to be put forward and looked into to see, you know, we're talking about having these classes, but there's one already there that's already being talked about being cut. So in these changes, we do need to look at what's already there that is already serving us. as the Black and Brown community, not cutting that class. So that's number one I wanted to point out. And that class is taught by Professor Dr. Ramona Coates. And so I really want to make sure that that is really investigated and looked into if you're talking about making these changes and having classes that support us. And that is a class that does support us. It is a subject matter that we need to transfer. And it also supports the qualification of looking at Black and Latino statistics, which really right now is a language we really need trying to understand these covert numbers, since that's a health matter that affects us. And we can use this data and this education right now to help ourselves. Quite often we learn things in school that have no bearing on our livelihoods, and this is something that does. So I feel very strongly about that, and I wanted to put that forward. So that is number one. Number two, the other thing I wanted to say is, since this health crisis and the numbers that are coming out is saying that we and the Black and Latino people are being most affected by this virus, then I want to make sure that on campus or through campus, through the wellness center, not just testing is done, but support in terms of mental health, depression, suicide, and all of those things, and making sure that during this time there should be more counselors of color that we can go to and talk about our racial trauma and disparity, because quite often those things are not necessarily included in the language of psychological counseling. So those are the two things I really wanted to speak about, and I will pass it back to the president.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those comments. So I'm going to talk about your 2 points real quick. The first one, so I love the fact that you have classes on your campus. And what we want to do with these curriculum changes is allow for other campuses that don't have those classes to establish those classes, right? So your campus might have those classes, other classes don't, or other campuses don't, and we want them to establish. On top of that, there shouldn't be, we want to get down to the reasoning why those classes are being cut, especially on your campus. And we want to make sure that it's firm, that the students stand behind these classes and they want these classes on their campus. So I think the Student Senate's going to end up looking into that situation, because like I said, I've just made aware of the CCSF, probably issue a press release and talk with the Chancellor's office and get down to the bottom of what exactly is happening on your campus. And that could be possibly happening on other campuses also, where these classes that are vital to these student populations, they need to be kept, right? They need to be there for these students. So we need to issue press release and make sure that we handle that. The second one about the wellness centers, if you didn't know, the Student Senate actually recently let out a press release about some COVID-19 block grant funding. The California Community College System just received $120 million for COVID-19 related items. And the colleges or college districts received that money. Each college district received a different amount of money, and they were sent a memo with allowable uses of those items, or of that money. So there were certain things that they could use that for. You touched on a few that are allowable uses: mental health resources, and getting students back into those classes. So we as the Student Senate, we sent out an additional memo and resolutions to each of the college campuses saying, hey, here's a resolution that we want you to take to your Board of Trustees and ask them to use that funding for a specific purpose. And we let the resolution kind of open for you as a student government to choose what it is on that campus that you truly need. And I think mental health is of utmost importance right now for our students. So definitely, I would say look into that. We want to have resources for our students to have during this time, and I think that's definitely, it would be detrimental if they didn't. Does that help out at all?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure that I put those to the record as well.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for those comments. Also, to address your the need for more counselors of color, we're actually going to address that later on in this document. We're going to talk about hiring more diverse faculty. So we will get to that. And I saw some great comments in the chat. I know we were saying, where are we at? I'd seen this comment from Ian. It says, I believe that if we want Black and African American history to be, we want it to become American history, right? And I think that's what we're trying to say here with our second bullet point. We want to integrate Black history, contributions, and culture into all curriculum. That includes our history as it stands right now, U.S. history. We aren't where we are today without the contributions that Black and African American people have made to this history. And that should be mandatory, making the tradition history classes just optional. This would also serve to raise attendance in these classes. That was a great point. And we'll get to some of the other ones. Any other comments along or as for curriculum changes? Sorry.
President Kodor, you have a hands raised.
Awesome. Let me go back. I see Wynn Kaufman.
Yeah, am I on mute? Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I just wanted to really underscore what the students from City College said, that there is this class, it's actually called Latin American Studies 5, which is it's actually a statistics class. And we're actually trying to, it's very time sensitive, and so that's why I'm underscoring what the students said. And I put a video into the chat, a link to a video that kind of explains the situation. We've been making a big push all summer to have the administration offer the class, and they've been dragging their feet, and they are still not offering it. And it's just unimaginable because we know that it would fill quickly. And the fact that they're not offering it is kind of an outrage. And so if there's anything, I don't know, I actually got on this call because I was doing my email and I saw a link from you because of Patricia. I'm on the Affirmative Action Task Force. I am a faculty, not a student. So maybe I'm piping up and being a little bit out of turn here, but if you students can help get that course, by writing a letter or a resolution or something, that would be so helpful. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for those comments. Yeah, and it's definitely better when it comes from the students, right? It's students exactly. voicing their opinions on, hey, this is a class that is vital to my success here on this campus. And I did talk to Dr. Nunley about scheduling a meeting within this next week, so that way we can issue a statement on behalf of the students there at CCSF. So I definitely we'll definitely get that handled and talk that over. And Dr. Adams, if you can actually send the link in the chat to the resolution that I had talked about the COVID-19 block grant funding, I think that would be great. Some of the students in the chat were asking about that. Dr. Nunley, you had your hand raised. I think it's Remy that was on that.
Oh, no, I'm good. Sorry if I raised my hand.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments on curriculum changes before I move on?
Yeah, I have something to say.
Awesome. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Keely Lord. I'm actually the African American Student Ambassador for CCSF. And I just wanted to emphasize the systematic racism that's occurring in in particular, City College. Our African American Studies Department is dying. We are subjected to being in a storage closet. About like 2 or 3 people can fit in there at a time. We have expired food. We have no type of support. So it's kind of hard for for students to receive any resources or support in our department if we don't have it. If you go to any of the other departments in the school, from, you know, the Pacific Islanders to the Asians department to the LGBTQ, it's amazing. They have working computers, they have supplies, they have teachers, they have full-time staff members there to support the kids. We don't have that for any of the African American students. So it's harder for us to succeed and to pursue anything if we don't have a backbone. We only have 3 classes in African American studies at CCSF. All of them are part-time, but all of them are taught by part-time faculty members because we have no full-time members. And all the classes are night classes and 3-hour classes. This is hard for me being a single mother, trying to take night classes, and they're not offered online. Well, due to the pandemic, of course, it's offered online. But I'm just talking about the fairness. There is no fairness in it at all. Even right now, my biggest struggle is we don't even have proper representation at CCSF, meaning the chair right now is a Latin American man named Edgar Torres. Ramona Coates was the elected chair, and she was pushed out of the department. So I like to always bring up this point. If this was an all women's group, supporting women, having the backbone for women, encouraging women through women experience, how would we feel if a man is dictating and representing us? How would we feel if a man is on the brochure of All Women's Magazine? It doesn't make any sense. So I just feel really insulted that we as African American, we have no say-so in our history. We have no say-so in our life, and we have no say-so in our proper representation. So it kind of frustrates me that we keep on talking about how Black Lives Matter, but yet through systematic racism and through these barriers, we can never be properly addressed, and we can never be properly taken care of. So a lot of the curriculum changes need to be made, but it also needs to be made in the core, which is in the system, in all these laws and rules, is why Dr. Coates can't act as a chair, why she has to take away some of her class. Why? There's already not enough Black people with a PhD. There's already not enough Black representation, teachers, counselors. If a Black woman wants to put more on her plate to help the Black community, what is the issue? I feel like there's too many rules and regulations that keeps on stopping us from getting to the top. If any of you guys would go into the African American Resource Center at CCSF, you would be appalled. It's just disrespectful the way how we are treated. We have absolutely zero funding. We have absolutely zero support. And we keep on pleading the same plea. We keep crying the same cry, and nothing's happening. So it kind of like, it makes me feel good, but at the same time it enrages me when I hear about all of the other changes happening at all these other CCSF and all the plans and all the curriculums and all this. And then we're at a standstill. We're like the only community college that's just like, nope, we're gonna be racist and we're gonna stay racist and we don't care about Black lives. I went to a meeting right after we were talking about defunding the police and how we're gonna add it into Black communities. 2-hour meeting, and Black lives was number 10 on the agenda. Number 10. We talked about everything from it was just the most disrespectful thing ever. But the meeting started off with Black Lives Matter. All right, let's do this. But we're gonna talk about every other, from museum studies to everything. It was just like appalling. So yeah. I just wanted to just bring out that CCSF is going backwards, and while you guys are going forward.
Well, thank you for your comments. I think that's very, I mean, it's pretty discouraging to hear everything that's happening on that campus, and I'm looking forward to our meeting that I'm going to have with the rest of you, and I hope you will be in on that meeting as I speak with Dr. Nunley and the rest of the students, and I hope you're included in that meeting so we can deal specifically with what's going on in your campus. And moving forward, we want to make sure that this action plan, right, is going to stem changes that will affect every California community college. We want these changes to be implemented on each and every single campus. So let's make sure that we look at this holistically and try and affect this change on every campus. And there's a lot of great things that are going on in the chat right now. And we're going to address a lot of those within the next couple pillars. So I want to keep moving, and we'll discuss the next pillar right now. Our next is peer mentors and alliances. We want to establish appropriate channels of communication for students to seek help and resources in addressing racism, microaggression, and other racial barriers to their education. This is something that some of our students have already expressed, right, in some of their comments. We want to facilitate communication between student groups. We want Latinx, Black student unions, API unions, Native Americans, and others to connect and understand the points of view and what they go through. Where student groups do not exist on some campuses, some of these student unions do not exist, we want administrators to work with students to form those groups. We want to form a participatory governance committee to address diversity, equity, and inclusion with representatives from the student body associations and faculty, so students have a platform for policy recommendations and administrative remedies. There are so many different committees that meet on your campus. There's budget, college council, facilities. We want a participatory governance committee that deals specifically with equity, with diversity, equity, and inclusion. If your college doesn't have one, they need one. And at that committee, there should be students present and there needs to be faculty present, and we talk about the issues of equity on our campus and how we can resolve those issues. I think that's huge, that's paramount, and a lot of what we're talking about right now with the students can be worked out within those committees. We want to create a peer mentor program or an equity center with students from different backgrounds who are trained to resolve conflict, receive complaints, mentor other students, and provide information to students struggling with racial barriers. I think one of the students said earlier, they want to turn to counselors to speak, some of the racial barriers that they're coming across. But I think sometimes also it's great to talk to students. If I can talk to my buddy about something that's going on, I think, some of that dialogue is going to be very effective and helpful. And we want to provide opportunities where faculty can share, learn, and listen to other faculty experiences and provide or receive advice on how to handle specific situations in the classroom. Because, yes, we want to make sure that this action plan is geared towards students and how can students succeed. And I think some of that has to deal with faculty being equipped in training and being able to have a platform for where they can bounce ideas off of other faculty. Hey, I've had this happen before in the past. How can we work collaboratively to make sure that doesn't happen in our classrooms again? And we want to make sure that moving forward is the best. Are there any comments about this section right here of establishing those peer mentor programs, those alliances between students? I see Robert.
How you doing?
Good, Robert. How you doing?
Okay. Well, I just want to make a special request for Calbright. We obviously don't have BSU or any other cultural or advocacy group established because we don't even have student reps. So for us it would almost be putting the cart before the horse. So I just want to make sure maybe when you're addressing it, and I know you're doing a lot to to get that up, but you keep that push so that we can have all of this stuff, and we not be kind of left behind when it comes to the formation of these organizations and whatnot.
Yeah, that's a great point, Robert. Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you again for being on our last town hall and providing some great feedback. As you know, we are working with Calbright and with some of the student leaders there for establishing some student leadership group or a student government on their campus or their virtual campus. They are also welcome to be a part of the caucuses, because I know in the absence of these unions on campus, there is the presence of these unions within the SSCCC. We have the Black Student Caucus. We have the API Student Caucus, the Able-Bodied Student Caucus, the Latinx Student Caucus. All of these caucuses are there for students to voice their concerns, bring them back to the SSCCC so that we can implement some change and be there to rally beside them. So definitely, if you want to get connected with any of those caucuses, we can send a list of them in the chat. I will also send out the email to the Equitable Practices chair, who is there to direct you to the right caucus that you want to get involved in. Or Dr. Adams actually just dropped the link in the chat. Jose, I see you had your hand up, and you actually just made a comment in the chat also, if you want to address that.
Yeah, I think that participatory governance is extremely important. I think that across the state, we've seen that a lot of these district committees are often challenged to actually have students sit on them. And you know, having been the president of Maricosta College last year, I know what a challenge it is for us as student leaders to navigate the higher educational system while also sitting on these committees and not being paid for it. Being the only people in the room to sit in district committees that are not being paid is the definition of inequity. And so we actually need to advocate. I think it would be powerful to advocate for us to model things like or community colleges like Santa Monica College, which has their student squad, which they all sit on these committees, and they're actually paid for through grants, through their board. And so there is funding, there is ways to actually have our students be paid for their time and the energy that they're being paid for. And I think that we need to look into those models so that we don't perpetuate that same inequity, because otherwise, you know, every year is going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same challenge to get students back onto these district committees, and every year that institutional knowledge gets lost.
Amen, brother. That is definitely one of the biggest inequities that we have in our system. And student leaders, I mean, look at me. I'm in my classroom right now. I'm supposed to, I don't want to say supposed to be working, but yeah, technically I'm supposed to be working to enable to sustain myself. If this was an in-person meeting, I would have had to take the day off of work to be in that meeting, losing my pay, not being paid to be in a meeting, still to advocate for students. And that's what a lot of student leaders throughout the state, the on campus, have to do, right? They sit in these budget meetings and these equity meetings, and there's the only one in that room getting not being paid. So that's definitely something that we need to address.
Absolutely. And I think that it extends beyond the district committee, because a lot of the stipends that we create, or, you know, we call them scholarships, or, you know, associated student government stipends, those were actually created in the 80s, a lot of them, if not earlier, right? So how often have we updated those stipends? If we just look at the inflation rate, like the inflation rate has gone to 3 to 4 times what it used to be. So yeah, $250 or whatever it is that we give our students, or $500 what we give our students, that might have been fine in the 80s. And even then it might have been inequitable, but to still have the same stipends now it's quite ridiculous. Like nobody would, no staff or faculty or administrator would take the pay today, receive a job or whatever it is on campus and be okay with being paid what they were paid in the 80s. That's just, nobody would do that. But for some reason, it's okay for us to ask our students to do that.
Yeah, those are some great comments. We definitely need to look into that. And I saw a comment in the chat about FICMAT, and yeah, they are, and they're there to give us guidance, but they aren't the rules. And we're, as a SSCCC, we are definitely looking into we want to take a deeper look into what those rules are and how they govern us as student government and as a college, and how resources can be diverted into other areas. So any other comments or questions about this pillar and providing peer mentors and alliances?
Yes, if I may. My name's Matt Blake. I'm from Huntington Beach, California. I'm a student at Golden West College in in Huntington Beach, California. I'm a disabled student. And I often feel that disabled students are underrepresented on community colleges across the state of California. And I've always had a desire to want to be a voice for the disabled, and to advocate for things that they need, like better access to doors and things of that nature. And I've always wanted to participate in student government so that students with disabilities have a voice in their own student government. However, because of my cerebral palsy, I can only take one class at a time. And the state bylaw says that a student must be required to take 5 units. But because I cannot take 5 units, I do not qualify to be on student government. Now, I'm pretty confident that there are other students in the state of California that have a disability or some type of illness that prevents them from taking 5 units to participate in student government or other club activities on campus. And I would like to see the student state senate for community colleges of California change the bylaw. What I would like to see is for them to consider changing it to requiring that a student must take at least 9 to 30 units before they can qualify to be on student government instead of the 5 units. Because as I said, not every student with a disability or an illness or what have you can take 5 units at a time. And I do believe that it's important to have equal representation, even in student government, of every student population, even disabled students. So that's something I would like to see. But people with disabilities actually suffer quite a lot of inequalities, and I would like to change that in community colleges. So thank you for letting me speak. And Wednesday, when I signed up to come to this meeting, I got the invitation. It did say submit any questions, and I submitted my question to Dr. Adams. So I think she may have gotten it in her email. So if this is something she's interested in looking at and helping me with, that would be great.
Matthew, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking up. You have a very powerful voice. You are a student of the California Community College System, and you can make a change. We have an Able-Bodied Student Caucus, and that Able-Bodied Student Caucus is for the voice of our disabled students. And all you have to do is be a student in that caucus in order to participate. So I'll definitely get you connected there. I put my email in the chat if you can see it, and we can touch base later, because okay, that restriction that is in Title V is very inequitable, and we've already started looking at it from the lens because of Calbright. They have a work at your own pace system, so they're not able to participate in student government either. But I was never aware of the fact, what you just brought to light. So I thank you for bringing that up, and that's something that we definitely need to take a look at. And I know Dr. Adams has some comments she'd like to make also.
Okay, and I would like to say one more thing if I don't take too much time. Because of my situation, I'm only able to take one class at a time. Lots of times I don't qualify for awards or scholarships because I don't take enough units. An example I can give from last semester is I have a high enough GPA that I was put on the, not the dean's list, the honors list. And I got an email saying, oh, you've almost made it on the honors list, but because you don't take enough units per semester, you don't qualify. Sorry. So that's something else that could be looked at. And the way it could be looked at is, I know this can get difficult and hairy, but it could, maybe there's a way that the state or each individual college can look at each individual student's situation instead of, so it kind of makes it more fair. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely does.
Yeah.
Dr. Adams?
I just wanted to say, Matthew, thank you for raising that issue. I did receive your email and have already begun research on your concern, and will be responding very shortly. It's something that we have thought about at the state level, and we'll be looking into it and providing more resources in this area.
Because I can tell you, not only am I frustrated, but my faculty members at my school are frustrated. Because they know I want to be a part, and it just frustrates them about the unit requirement. So,
Yeah, Matthew, like I said, I appreciate you bringing it up, and we're definitely going to take a bigger look. If you look in the chat, if you're able to open that chat up, there's about 4 or 5 different people that want to connect with you about this issue. So take down their emails and definitely reach out to them with yours if you can.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Matthew. I saw Benson, you have your hand raised, and then I'm going to move on to the next pillar.
Yes. To piggyback on Matthew's comment on that, I am for Matthew to let him know I am disabled student, and I've been in student government for since 1999 all the way up to now, and I'm the student trustee. But man, only thing I want to say to you, man, don't give up. Continue on doing it. If I can, you can send me an email. I'm having trouble trying to type in my email to my phone, but just for everybody to know, if they need to reach me, they can reach me through my email at bAtkins@compton.edu. So,
right.
Matthew, keep up the good work. Don't let your voice be heard. And on my end, I will make sure that I get in contact with you and help you the best way I can. The floor is yours, Mr. President. I have to go to class right now, but I will talk to you guys later.
Thank you,
Benson, and thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on. So next we want to deal with the classroom experience. So we want to create a classroom environment that's conducive to learning by ensuring that faculty are representative of the student population, providing students with an opportunity to give feedback to improve their learning experience, and including information on where to go to find resources on the syllabus. I think these 3 things are essential, and this is how we're going to do it. We want to administer faculty evaluations each semester that include cultural competency and classroom management. I've been going to California Community College on and off for about 4 years, and I have only had to ever do 1 faculty evaluation. Why is that the case? Why is our faculty not being evaluated on the classroom experience that they're giving us, right? Not even for the purpose of maybe getting them in trouble. We want to do this for their own benefit, right? We want to give them pointers as to how they can progress in their area of study, right? So we want to deal with that, administer faculty evaluations each semester, give them pointers on how that classroom experience went. We want to hire more diverse faculty in all pathways. So we don't want to just see a diverse set of faculty go to the ethnic studies group, right? We want to see a diverse set of faculty go to every single pathway. We want to see more diverse faculty in the STEM program. We want to see more diverse faculty in the social sciences. We want to see more diverse faculty across the board. And then we want to require anti-racism statements, information on where to go to find the student grievance process, and where to go to talk to someone when experiencing microaggression or other racial inequities in the classroom in the course syllabus. So in the course syllabus, they pack it full of everything else. Why not have a statement about anti-racism and how they're going to deal with that in the classroom, and allow for the student grievance process to be in there also, so students can know where to go. Every student has to take a class. Each one of those students have to receive a syllabus, right? The syllabus is one of the required content. We want to make sure that that syllabus has the necessary materials for that student to succeed in that class. So that's the classroom experience. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that about this topic?
I actually do for classroom experience, if I may.
Sure, Matthew.
As a disabled student, often, and I learned how to overcome this. Often on the first day of the semester, you meet your professor, and especially when you're a disabled student, you try to go up before class begins and meet your professor and try to tell them all the accommodations you need and all the help you will need with certain things and how they can help you. And I discovered that was very, 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 very stressful for me and many other disabled students. So what I learned to do was, at least maybe 2 weeks before the semester started, I always send out an introductory email to my professors saying who I am, what my needs are, what my accommodations are. And that way it takes the pressure off me, it takes the pressure off the professor. So when we meet the first day, we've already communicated, and there's a lot less uneasiness and a lot less pressure. But what I'm trying to allude to is I've noticed that the universities in the state of California often require disabled students to send out an accommodation letter before class starts. But that is not required in community colleges. And I think that is something that community colleges can look into to improve communication between a disabled student and their professor, and to cut down on some of the uneasiness and pressure that is felt when trying to introduce yourself and trying to get the accommodations you need. So I don't know if that falls under classroom experience, but I think that would make life a lot easier for disabled students and the professors dealing with disabled students. So.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Matthew. And that's definitely something that we can tackle within our Able-Bodied Caucus. Bring that discussion up, bring those points up, and that's definitely we can talk about adjusting that classroom experience for our abled students. All right.
All right.
Thank you. I see a hand up from Jen Galinato.
It's okay. Thank you though.
Was I close?
President. So I'm Jen Galinato. I am actually a current senator over at Sacramento City Community College. I'll be the incoming Secretary of Legislative Affairs. There's actually a part about the third bullet point that sticks out to me. So this part where it's requiring anti-racist or anti-racism statements, it's really hard to look at that and say that it's really just hard to look at that. As a student myself, I'm a first generation Filipinx American, and most of the time I get put into a classroom setting where it is really hard to compose myself, as I am the only non-Caucasian student in the classroom. And specifically, I get a lot of questions, and I usually don't try to take it in a way where the professor is trying to be racist towards me in any way. But I do get questions about my perspective, or the Asian perspective or the Pacific Islander perspective in regards to certain issues. Now, maybe that might just be because of my major. So I'm a triple major in law, business, and communications. But it is really hard to forgive professors when they say that they're not racist, and then I'm not sure if it's purposely aiming these questions towards me and whatnot. And the other thing that I also find very hard to forgive is that they're also asking me to speak as overall the point person for all minorities. So my question for you, Mr. President, is how do you go about educating, or not educating, excuse me, but making sure that professors don't make the students uncomfortable in the classrooms? Because this is something that I've been accustomed to my entire life, yet I wish it wasn't so prominent in a college setting, especially.
Yeah, Miss Galinato, or Galinato, sorry, Galinato. That what you were experiencing right there is definitely a microaggression. They might not think that they're being aggressive towards you, but that is a microaggression. For them to say, we want you to speak on behalf of all Pacific Islanders, that's terrible. And I think that deals with the faculty training. As I alluded to earlier, what we want is students in the room for that training. We want to be able to tell faculty, don't say that to us, right? Don't look around the room, see a vast array of white people and turn to the one student of color and ask them for their perspective, right? We don't want that singling out. And I think there's different ways to deal with it to where you don't feel so, or where you don't feel that microaggression, right? Is that kind of encompassing of how you're feeling?
Yes. Also, the other thing I didn't touch on, unfortunately, is how do you properly address a professor when it comes to that they are saying these things or doing these things in the classroom that you are not comfortable with as the student who is being asked of this? I can tell you from personal experience, I actually declined to answer it. And then the professor said, well, then I guess you're going to fail this assignment because you refused to speak upon that. And then holding the professor accountable for that action, despite them having said, oh, I'm not a racist and whatnot.
Yeah. So the faculty training would be first, right? But then the faculty accountability. Ooh, excuse me. I think that's what we address here in our faculty evaluations and the student grievance process. In order for a student to be able to speak to a professor about how they're feeling in their class, they need to be able to have a grievance process in order. I'm guessing your college probably doesn't. My college does not. There is no way for me, if I am feeling a certain way in my classroom, I have no avenue for me to express that frustration to faculty or administration. Luckily for me, I'm a student leader and I know a lot of faculty and administration, but there are other students that are not like me, right? There are other students on that campus that aren't able to have those avenues of communication, and they go home and some of them never come back to class, right? And that's not what we want. We want to have, that's why we're doing this action plan. We want to have the faculty trained on how to address these issues. And then we want them to remain accountable. We want to have an anti-racist statement in the syllabus where that we can hold them accountable. You're not following what is said here in your syllabus to make me feel welcomed in this classroom. If that's not good enough, then we have the evaluations and we have a student grievance process. We have a student grievance process for during the semester, school year. As issues come up, we speak up to them. And maybe that's done anonymously, because I know that there's some students that just, they don't want maybe the repercussions that they feel they would get from speaking up. So we have the student grievance process, and then we have the faculty evaluation at the end. And I know Dr. Nunley actually put in here, the faculty evaluations have saved her job. There's been tenure boards that look over a professor and look over the student evaluations and say, well, we wanted to get rid of you, but the students love you. Or we don't want to get rid of you, but the students hate you. I think that's, those are some things that we need to look at. The student's voice holds power, so we need to make sure that faculty are held accountable for the quality of instruction that they're giving us. I hope that addressed your issue, and I hope that we can continue to put those at the forefront: faculty training, student grievance process, and faculty evaluations. Get them trained, allow us to speak up about it, and hold them accountable.
It did, and I hope maybe it'll be easier within our grievance process because it's an absolute mess, unfortunately. But I hope that maybe someone here could help out with that process over at Sac City, because again, I go to a community college where I'm proud to say that we are a majority minority college, and we actually have the biggest group of Filipinx Americans and Asians and Pacific Islanders. So hopefully there will be someone here that would love to work with me on that, because it's hard trying to take it on myself, and I've been doing that ever since I became a senator. So now knowing this information, thank you so much, and I will yield the rest of my time to you, Mr. President. Thank you again.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, and I see that there was a comment, Miracosta College has a bias incident reporting and bias response team. I think that's definitely something to look into. And I will recognize Trillia at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Also, I forgot to say my title last time. I'm Trillia Hargrove, and I am a CCSF student and also a member of the CCSF BSU. And I just want to absolutely agree with what Jen was saying, and also that creating a culture among the staff is going to be really important to then translate that over to the students, because from personal experience, one of the teachers that I really respected for setting this as an example at the beginning was that my psychology teacher, she made sure to say at the very beginning, please let me know if there's something that I said wrong, because I'm coming at this from, I think it was primarily a heteronormative setting. She was a woman of color, but still there were definitely experiences that I wouldn't expect her to know, and she was very open with saying that please inform me if there's something that I said wrong. And I really respected that, and I think having that as just part of professor culture, among professors, because there's only so much a student can say about that. But having that among professor culture would be really important to bringing that inside the classroom, and also making sure that the professors are educated on these subjects beforehand, so they're not having to ask a student, because making a student a representative, it's kind of like making a student as a representative is not that's singling out as just showing from the experience that we just talked about, which is so, oh my God. But also I've been in a situation where there was a culture that was part of my culture that I heard talked about that I didn't feel like I could correct, because my professor hadn't really made that a space to talk about, hold him accountable. And so it's again, it's a balance, making sure that people are coming into this, or the professors are coming into the space with a lot more education, so they don't have to depend on the students who are there just to learn, but also making sure that if there's something that they need to be corrected on, they can be by students. So that was all I wanted to say. So thank you, Mr. President.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for those comments. Yeah, I think it's of utmost importance right now that students are actually given that perspective, that the chance to give that perspective to the faculty, but not in that setting, right? We don't want them in the classroom having to deal with it there. We want them in the training saying, hey, this is how we want you to deal with situations. This is how I will feel welcome if a situation like this presents itself. This is how we do not want to be treated. We do not want to be singled out like this, for the sake of conversation. So I think it's definitely everything that you said was real great. So thank you. Any other comments on this section? I want to be conscious of everyone's time. I want to get through the whole thing, and then if there's anything else, we can do it at the end. Actually, I think that was that the last pillar, Dr. Adams? I think that was.
Yes, that was the last one, President Kuder.
All right. So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to open it up for any final comments, anything that you think we might have missed out on, or anything that we might want to add into this action plan for our students of color that will help empower them on their campuses. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to give you kind of the final rundown, is we're going to take this document, we're going to take it to our delegate assembly. The delegate assembly is one student voting from each California community colleges. So that means there's 116 California community colleges. There is one student that is a delegate to the SSCCC. We hold a meeting. It's usually in the spring. We changed our bylaws to allow for special meetings throughout the year. This is going to be our first ever special meeting. It's on September 4th. Anyone from the public can join in, but one student from each college will be voting. That student is approved, or not approved, sorry, that's the terrible choice of words. That student is Dr. Adams, give me the word. What does the advisor do? They I don't want to say approve.
Verified?
Thank you, that's the word. The advisor verifies you as the delegate from your ASO, and you become the student voting member. We will have that meeting on September 4th, so you want to reach out to your student advisor or your ASG advisor from your campus to make sure that you have a delegate that is coming to this meeting, because you will be casting a vote in favor or in opposition of this action plan, and we hope that it will be in favor. So I'm going to open up right now for any final comments, suggestions, anywhere that we, anything that we might have missed. Jose?
Oh, thank you so much. I actually put the link in the chat, and I just want to reiterate that in reference to bullet point number 2, to hire more diversity faculty in all pathways. One of those ways that we can do that is by supporting Prop 16, which would repeal the ban on affirmative action in hiring in our higher education.
Awesome, thank you for bringing that up, Jose. And actually, the SSCCC has taken a stance of support on that. We have some resources to help you with that. As far as, you know, like we said earlier, some template resolutions, letters that you can send to your board of trustees, urging them to also support that proposition and getting the word out to students. Right now, we're in the middle of a crisis. We need students out there getting out the vote, right? So SSCCC is also doing a Get Out the Vote campaign. We're actually trying to be the higher education system that has the most students that sign up to vote. You can definitely take a look at our website. We have a whole Get Out the Vote campaign, just trying to get as many students registered to vote as possible. Robert?
Okay. Well, one of the things that I noticed wasn't on there. You know, the California community colleges, I mean, it's, it educates people, it's employment for some people, but it's also, a major, purchaser, and, they hire contractors. And, I know when I was on campus, not just a virtual campus, one of the things that we were pushing for, but, just got passed, is to make sure that our funds, be they, grant funds, scholarship funds, or, whether you're paying out of pocket, is used in a way that students of color, feel good about. And what I mean is, for example, Harvard, you may have heard like Harvard, University of Virginia, they all started looking into how the university, was involved in, a beneficiary of, and really, supporting, the slave system. And so, in looking at, how the university or how the CCC, contracts. And so I think that's pretty important because, for example, you wouldn't want your sports uniforms, made from, little kids in Bangladesh, or child labor over here or what have you. I happen to know that, a lot of the, the contracts and the vendors that the CCC uses, are involved in some practices that we would consider, racist and not something that we would want our dollars, going to the point where, some people are uncomfortable, spending their money on campus like that. So that's just one of the things that, I think that we should look into, that making sure that, the money that's put into, the colleges and the discretionary funds that the college can spend, on equipment, tables, chairs, furnitures, and all that kind of stuff like that, not go to support, companies or entities, that practice, what we consider, racist or discriminatory policies. That's it.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's definitely important that we diversify our contracts within the system. I know I live in the Central Valley, very high Latino population, right? Latinx population out here, very Hispanic. And our district actually, whenever we send out contracts, we always make it a priority to make sure that, one, they might be ex-students or former students of our system, and two, that they are a diverse company, or they promote diversity through the workplace. So I think that's something that we definitely can look into and maybe even integrate within this document. Thank you for those comments. Kelly?
Hi, my name is Kelly. I work at Butte College with our student government and ICC and everything. And thank you for this work. It's amazing. And we'll be using this platform at Butte College. And one of the things it reminds me of is also tracking the sustainability movement, that they have like ratings for schools, like the STAR rating that's through ASHE, which is the Association for Sustainability in Higher Education. And this reminds me of that. So, because years ago, when the sustainability movement was really going strongly, our college had a list kind of like this of like categories, and then like core, like 5 to 10 core things in each category. And it gave us a checklist of things to address. And then you could actually apply for a rating through the ASHE, the National Organization for Sustainability in Higher Education, to get a STAR rating for your school. And it's similar to the LEED, the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. So you can get like a gold or silver or bronze. And I'm not saying that we should go down that. There's like all sorts of challenges with doing a system like that and awards, but just this idea of sort of a roadmap or checklist that we could look, because what I've heard today is some schools are actually doing well in some of these bullets, and then other ones are not. But it gives us a way to kind of give us a roadmap and check off. And then what made me think of that too was the gentleman who just shared before about this, almost like a green purchasing policy. It's like a social justice, purchasing policy that we could look at through our finance department. Because I know we have a green purchasing policy, but we don't have a social justice kind of like anti-sweatshop and buying from BIPOC companies and looking at our investments. So anyway, I just think that there's a few different things that could be modeled off of some of the environmental justice work that has been happening.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I think those are two very great ideas. I know, even as I said, I'm a teacher for a local school district. We even do like PBIS or intervention type. It's kind of along the same thing, sustainability, where you can have like platinum, gold, silver levels and different things like that. And I think we do need to take some sort of a route like that, where we have checklists and levels on what level of equity they're at, right? And I think just the other day at the webinar that that the Chancellor's Office put out, that I was actually able to be a part of, they said, where are you in your equity race? Are you just coming into this? Are you learning, or are you growing, right? And there was 3 different steps, and I think maybe we need to start rating colleges on that level. Hey, you're here, you're barely coming into this equity mindset, and we need to get you into the learning and the growing phase. So I think that's really great. Definitely look into something about social justice purchasing policies. I think that I honestly think we've seen sustainability purchasing policies come as a resolution to our General Assembly in the spring. And I think if one of our students, and maybe a couple of our students, especially those that are on this call right now, want to form a resolution about colleges having to have an implemented social justice purchasing policy, I think that would be a great idea. And we bring it to our General Assembly in the spring. It's actually the last weekend of March. And hopefully, COVID permitting, we can actually do this in person. It's going to be in Long Beach. If not, it will be in a virtual format. But if we can get that and approve it as a General Assembly, then we can take that to our system partners also and take it to the Chancellor's office and say, hey, we need this on our campuses. So those
And
are.
I'll send you the stars grid and scoring matrix just as an example to look at.
All right, thank you. And I know there's another student on here. I think I saw her pop up. She's really wanting to get LinkedIn into that sustainability effort. So Sophia, maybe you should send her your email. And any other questions or comments? I think those are two great suggestions that we can go moving forward. And like I said, we're going to be taking this document to the Special Delegate Assembly on September 4th for approval. All right, I'm not seeing or hearing anything else. I've dropped my email in the chat a couple times. But I'm the president of the Student Center for California Community Colleges. My name is Stephen Kodur. I'm here to advocate on behalf of every single one of you within the California Community College system. The rest of my Institutional Success for People of Color Task Force that have been doing some great work. They're here to help in this equity race, in this pursuit of racial equity. And we'll be presenting at a couple webinars throughout the next couple of weeks. We're going to be doing a leadership and professional development at the end of September. We'll be sending out information for that. I think Dr. Adams is going to send a link in the chat right now for our getting some feedback for our listserv, which is a way for you to just sign up your email. Any email that the SSCCC sends out, we send it through the listserv, and that's one way for you to get signed up. So I just want to thank every single one of you for being on here, and for helping in this or for helping in this platform to get your student voice heard. I appreciate every single one of you. We still have some leadership opportunities in some of our regions. I know Butte College was on here earlier, Region 1. The Ventura County area, we need some student leaders around that area. And if you just want to get involved, please reach out to us. We're here for you, and we stay committed to our students at this time. So if there's anything else, I'll stick around for a little bit longer to answer any more questions, but I wish you the best of luck. I hope you all stay safe. Yeah.
Chair?
Yes, recognize?
Hi. Yeah, hi. I'm on the phone, so I don't